And so now you're in the fourth quarter of your second term. And for lack of a better term, right? And you have led this country through some very big challenges nationally and globally, going through a global pandemic, coming back and managing an economic recovery after that, supply chain challenges as well. And so really your leadership has been challenged. And while navigating these challenges that you have very little control over, you still had to keep the nation's development and future plans top of mind. And as you kind of sit here and reflect on your time in office so far, what would you say are some of the things that you are most proud of in terms of what you've accomplished as a leader of our nation? And then where would you say you see some room that you'd like to spend a little bit more time with?
Well, that's a good question, but I can't give you a succinct answer because the story is still being written.
There we go.
The canvas is being painted on as we speak. But when I took over the office of Prime Minister, the second time, I was quite clear in my mind what I wanted to accomplish in Jamaica. Because you will recall previously, I served as Minister of Education, and I've always been involved politically since I was very young and had great dreams and hopes for my nation. And I saw many of the challenges that previous leaders had, and even with great intentions, were simply not able to overcome those challenges. And the big thing in my mind was to get the education system correct. And I worked within the framework of the National Education Transformation Program, which was launched by former Prime Minister Pattison in the 1990s. I had the privilege of being Minister of Education under the Bruce Golding-led administration and had the privilege, again, of implementing many of the programs which were developed under the Education Transformation Task Force. So I got to see firsthand what the process of transformation could look like. And I believe we were making significant progress in education, particularly in literacy and in early childhood education. And I then became Prime Minister, then for a few months. A turbulent period, I won't go into all of that, but to get to the question, which is the immediate question of my second iteration in the office, what is it that I wanted to do? Well, the first thing is, in the new iteration, starting in 2016, was to ensure that we have a strong, robust, and resilient economy. That's number one, critical. And I came to that conclusion because I was a minister of government between 2007 and 2011 and experienced the global economic fallout caused by the global recession of 2008, 2009, and how difficult it was to manage a country like Jamaica that was heavily indebted. We were not able to withstand global shocks. And the inability to withstand global shocks meant that you were always vulnerable and you had to delay your development objectives. And what that meant as well is that when the political pressures start to build to say, accelerate the pace of your development aspirations, people want roads, proper roads, water, security, you end up being forced into a borrowing situation. So we are borrowing to develop, but you don't have the productive capacity to produce the revenues to properly repay your debt. So the idea of having a government that understands fiscal discipline critical. So I came into office with that in mind, that we're going to make sure that the Jamaican economy is robust and resilient, and that the notion of good fiscal management becomes part of what I like to describe as the political economy, meaning that the electorate begins to understand the importance of the economy to achieving all the things they wish for. You lived for many years you're born in the United States, lived for many years in the United States, so you would understand that the American electorate is very economistic in this way.
That's right. Yeah.
That they vote according to the economy, and they understand that the economy, that is what delivers the fantastic prosperity that the American society and economy has enjoyed over the centuries. Indeed, most developed countries are like that. They understand the importance of the economy. I'm not necessarily fully of the view that every Jamaican pays attention to this. The value of bringing down the debt, the value of a stable dollar, the value of controlling inflation, the value of fiscal management that results in the need not to have new taxes. I'm not certain that this is valued as it should be in the politics of the country, meaning the political economy of all the considerations that voters should have when they're voting. So part of my journey, therefore, was to show the Jamaican people the value of what a good economy is. Now, you don't get a good economy overnight. And there are so many things that you have to do, particularly institution building. So one of the things that we, may I have a drink of your excellent Discovery water. This is lovely. I really need to get this.
Definitely.
But one of the things that I tried to do on my journey was to maintain good fiscal discipline over my 2 terms so far, and to have that entrenched institutionally so that it doesn't become at risk of political exigencies and expedience, which is what has happened before. In other words, the very electorate places pressure on governments to act in ways that are irresponsible. Yes. And so you have to guard against that. And you have to be able to have a conversation with your people. You have to be able to say to your electorate, these are the important things. And the pace at which we develop is going to be dictated not by how much we can borrow, but by how much we can produce. That is not a conversation that is readily had in the Jamaican context, because somehow there's a disconnection in the electorate to believe that we can have everything we want without focusing on production, right? So the issue of productivity, that is the next phase of the journey. So the first phase of our economic journey is to show the public that as the managers of your resources, we have managed them well to the point where we can pay down our debt and not ask you for any new or more taxes, and still deliver at a fairly efficient pace the things you would like. Now, I believe that conversation is maturing. I believe the electorate is starting to see the benefits of good fiscal policy. And elections are a great opportunity to have the conversation and have the debate for people to share their views and have it tested in the court of public opinion. And some of that is going on. But the other phase of that economic development is to become now more efficient, more productive, and more innovative as a people, as a country. And you're a businessman, and you would see here that even, in spite of the major economic achievements that we've had, and I can just give you a kind of headline of what those achievements are, and by any measure, they are incredible. Our debt went as high as 150% debt to GDP. When I took over in 2016, it was about 130. Today, the debt is 68% of GDP, and it is declining. And we are on track to getting down to 60 and even down to 50%, which would be amazing and would just open up new fiscal space for our country to do even greater things. Unemployment is another measure of an economy. In the United States, a big thing is made of the unemployment numbers. I mean, the markets watch the unemployment numbers. We don't so much here in Jamaica, again, because the different dynamics of what our electorate understands good government to be. But we're working on that. And we religiously put that figure out. When we took over, unemployment was somewhere in the region of about 13%. Now unemployment is 3.3%. A great achievement, but it opens up a whole new set of problems. Firms are struggling to find labor and find trained labor. And that's an area we work on. When we took over, the dollar was highly unstable. Now we have a fairly stable currency, and we have the highest reserves that we've ever had in our history. Two things are linked. High reserves means you can maintain a stable currency. Another major achievement is that in the term before I took over, the administration before I took over, the government had 4 or 5 budgets, and 2 out of those budgets, they had to put on massive tax packages. Since we have been in the government, the level of attention that is paid to the reading of the budget is not so much these days. Back then, people view the budget with trepidation. Oh, there's going to be some, great taxation placed on us. When we read the budgets, people are more listening. What's new we're going to get from what are we going to get from the budget? Not what they're going to take from us. So, the benefit of good government has resulted in a stable fiscal policy that does not require us to raise taxes. Now, who knows what will happen in the future? There might be, some social need that politically is important to do, and that might have to happen. But as we are running the country now, and our program and plan is to maintain that fiscal stability and to institutionalize it, which we have done in putting in place a fiscal commission, which scrutinizes the budget and makes pronouncements on it, pretty much like the budget office in the United States. We have also done very well in controlling inflation, and that is from the redirection of the central bank from trying to control interest rates and money supply and these kinds of things to focus mainly on controlling inflation. Inflation is the bane of consumers and fixed income earners and savers. So we have been able to maintain inflation within the 4 to 6% target, and we have, except for the period of COVID where inflation went out of whack for everyone, we were able to bring back inflation into the target zone very well, and that is working very well. A big thing for us is the reduction in absolute poverty. In 2023, just after the pandemic, the idea of the number of Jamaicans living below the poverty line, that measurement was somewhere around about 16%. The latest measure of absolute poverty shows that has been cut in half. Wow. So on all the high-level metrics, the Jamaican economy has performed exceptionally well. And the rating agencies that put out their perspective on Jamaica have all essentially said, that Jamaica has performed creditably and better than its peers in the region. So Jamaica has moved from being considered, the economic basket case to the case study.
Yes.
And we're very proud of that, right? It didn't come by, certainly not just by my own political leadership. The administration before that and the administration before that deserve some credit, because when the crisis happened, first, Bruce Golding was the prime minister at that time. I was in his cabinet, and I know the efforts and the work that was done with then Minister of Finance Audley Shaw to bring legislation to Parliament regarding the fiscal management of the country. And the former PNP administration, Peter Phillips, did quite a bit of work, again, to institutionalize that. And so when I took it to another level, and I made it more extensive, and I intensified. And now I think we are in a solid place, in a strong place. And that is demonstrated by the fact that since then, we have had a global pandemic that has devastated many other economies. And the lasting impact of the pandemic is the higher level of debt post-pandemic that many nations now have. But if you look at Jamaica, our debt has gone back down because of the resilience that we have built into the economy. And if you look at how we have managed inflation, it's gone back down. If you look at how we have managed to ensure that we have returned to a very low level of unemployment. In fact, I think you could say we are at full employment at 3%. And, just the return to growth after the pandemic. If you look at what happened to us when we were hit by Hurricane Beryl, we were able to recover very quickly without borrowing. Without borrowing, we were able to quickly recover. So the investment in fiscal discipline is paying off when we are hit by an exogenous shock globally. We are able to, from our own resources, deal with the challenges that we face. That was not the case 10 years ago. If we were hit by Hurricane Beryl in 2015, going back to say 2000, we would be in problems.
Yeah.
If the pandemic had happened before that, we would be in problems. So it is now for the Jamaican electorate to understand the importance of good government managing your economy, because that is what is going to give you the umbrella that protects everyone. Now, for the average voter, that's not an issue. The average voter is looking not so much at, foreign exchange stability or lower interest rates or the debt coming down. As far as many of them are concerned, this doesn't benefit me.